In this series of videos, we're running through a lot of advice and things that you can do to look after, care for and repair tailoring at home yourself. Today we're going to talk about dealing with stains and marks on clothing. It's the kind of thing that you wouldn't think we'd normally talk to a tailor about. Maybe we'd normally talk to a dry cleaner, for example. But actually, tailors spend so much of the time working with cloth and really working that cloth, so running it through lots of different processes. That means that it's going to become a bit stained, or there's going to be issues with it they need to deal with, that actually they find they have a real treasure trove of knowledge in this area. So today we're going to talk to Ben Clarke from the tailor Richard James, and he's going to run us through his tips and tricks for dealing with various stains and marks on clothing. Ben, I guess let's start off with what's the first thing you might do. One of my guesses is a liquid. You might try and soak up any excess of a kind of stain or something you see if it's not dry yet. Is that right?
Yeah, if it's a wet stain, some wine or something like that, try and soak as much of it out as possible. Don't apply anything to it in terms of, there are all sorts of, old wives' tales, aren't there? Tonic water or lemon juice or white wine on red wine, or try and avoid all of that. Just
because there's a small chance of making it worse.
It could, you just don't know how it's going to react to the liquid, or also the combination of the liquid and the cloth together.
Yeah. Okay.
Can make a difference.
So you're just trying to soak it up with some kitchen roll or something else on top of it, or a cloth, just to take as much of it off as you can. Yeah. But don't add on, for example, water to a dry stain and then try and soak that up.
No. First thing you want to do, which is pretty easy, you want to assess whether it's a dry stain or a wet stain.
Yeah.
Quite often with a dry stain, if you use the cloth itself and rub it on that dry stain, it's not going to do any harm. And it's amazing. For some reason, it must be something to do with the weave or something, but the same cloth has to be the same. Yeah. But rub that on there, and literally, you've got a stain, just get your sleeve, if it's on the lapel, and just give it a good, you can be quite rough with it, and just give it a really good rub like that. And if it's not a serious stain that sort of really started to sink in, that if
it's something just sitting on the surface, and then that kind of works well.
That should get rid of it.
Okay, that's interesting. I guess I should have said as well earlier that we're talking mostly about tailoring here, so we're talking about wools, we're talking about animal-based kind of materials, and a lot of these things kind of work better on those kind of those materials, right? It's easy to do those kind of treatments on that. Yeah. And also, those kind of materials have natural oils in them, which often make them more resistant to these kind of things as well, so easier than cottons or other things as well. Yeah,
absolutely. There's a natural inbuilt. That's why wool has been so great. Why we've used it for so many years. Yeah. It has natural cleaning elements in it. Yeah. That's why we always suggest to people, aftercare for their suits, get steam into it as much as possible, because the fibres love it. Yeah. Helps it sort of, the oil sort of soaks up that heat, that moisture. Whereas with the oilier wool fabrics, they can, like you say, repel water a bit.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say that's like a next stage. So you try to just kind of run one piece of your jacket against the other to try and see if it just kind of comes off fairly easily. And then putting some steam into the material can be quite effective, can't it? Much more than kind of water would be, because the steam gets into the fibres, and wool just loves that very much. Right? It relaxes everything that's going on in there.
They love it. It's true. So just a good squirt from your iron. Yeah. And then this is a great investment, just to have a good firm. Obviously not wire, but a good firm brush. Yeah. Get a bit of steam in there.
So the steam might have loosened up whatever's on there, and then you might just be able to brush it off the surface
and then
afterwards.
Give it a good brush with your brush, and that may well do the trick. Okay. That's certainly step 2. Yeah,
okay. So start off with the soaking it up, then we might try steam and kind of brushing it off. And I guess then other things you might do really dependent on whether you know what the stain was, and there are some then particular treatments you might use for particular stains, right?
That's right.
So for example, if it's obviously like an oily stain, like it feels oily, or you've seen some kind of salad dressing or something go onto the material, then you can put chalk on it, right? Is that what you're going to do?
Well, that's it. You want to. So obviously you've got kind of natural oils in the wool, and then it's the oils from and the wool's going, lovely, and it just sort of soaks in. So you want to try and coax the oil back out. Okay. So that's where French chalk, something that we use, you can buy it easily online. It's just a white powder.
And it has to be French chalk? You can't use any other kind of blackboard chalk or anything like that?
No, I mean, I've tried scraping the chalk that we use for marking.
Oh yeah, okay.
I've tried scraping that onto it. It doesn't have the same effect. I've tried other things, maybe a bit of a placebo or something, but it seems to be the thing that works most effectively on
French
most
chalk.
oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you just buy it in a tub.
Yeah.
And it's just like talcum powder here.
And so what you just take off a little bit?
You take a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Got your stain. You want to just get that on there. You want to use, be pretty.
A decent amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just put it on there, and then you just leave it.
Okay. Not rubbing it in, not trying to spread it out, just leave it very much on the surface.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then if you can, leave it overnight.
Okay.
And then come back the next day, blow the excess off.
Yeah.
And then get your brush.
And brush that off as well.
Give that a good brush. And again, that is a very effective way of getting rid of an oil stain.
And I guess if you do that too vigorously, as well as also the rubbing the material against itself, I guess if you do that too much, you could start to get pilling or something. Like that's if you start to see that damage in the surface, that's where you want to stop, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and other few things you could demonstrate, I know we talked about before. So one of them, I guess, is blood, like if you just cut yourself, right? And I think I've often found that as well. It's not that you notice and you're bleeding everywhere, it's just the fact you've cut your finger on a needle or something else like that, and then you just touch the fabric and suddenly notice later on you've got a little spot of blood on there. And blood, you were saying you would use kind of saliva on? Yeah,
so this is one of those old wives' tales that actually really, really works.
Yeah.
So if you get blood on cloth, you can draw it out with your saliva. Now, the thing is that it has to be the same person.
Okay.
So you can't just, if someone, like you said, most of the time you've cut yourself, you've nicked your finger doing something. So most of the time it's going to be, it's going to be your own blood. If someone happens to bleed on you, you need to get them. Okay. You need to get their saliva. So it's a little bit, it's a little bit gruesome, a little bit tricky, but it really does work. And what we do, in the course of, in a workshop, it happens you're using sharp stuff all the time. It can happen that you get, especially on, you've got a lovely cream jacket on there, sod's law, the tailor who's working on it are going to nick themselves. And we get basting cotton, get a good ball of it, chew it, get it really wet, and then literally you're just placing it on to...
In that case, you're pressing it down onto the blood stain.
Get in there, let it get really soak, hold it on there for a while, and then you lift it off, and it will draw the blood out. We're talking about small spots and things like that. Yeah. There's a limit, but it's incredibly effective.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's funny how I think most people don't actually see that variety of stains because they're not actually dealing with clothes all the time, but you're dealing with cloth every single day. You see these kind of things, actually those are the things that to you really work. And it's only the ones that kind of really are quite simple to do, quite risk-free to do, and definitely you see working, that I guess you should do yourself, because I guess our overall message here is that do those things if they're simple and they really work, but don't take any risks because you're dealing with very expensive clothing, right? That's right. And there are experts out there specifically there to take care of stains and marks. So I think it's very much about using a few simple guidelines, identifying if you can what the stain is, whether it is oil-based or not. If it's not oil-based, you go down the kind of brushing and steam route. If it is oil-based, go down the chalk route. If it's a blood, then you've got that option. If you don't have basting cotton and some tissue or something. And then generally, if those aren't effective, go to a professional. But a good one. Because I was going to say, because there's lots of other treatments that people talk about, isn't there? Like, for example, like with wax, people say put like grease-proof paper on the top and then put an iron on top and kind of soaks it out. But I would almost, if you've never done that before, it's quite a scary thing to do, right? And there's always some chance that you do it too hot or something goes wrong. So unless it's very reliable, it's just not worth trying, is it? I don't think so. When you have got experts at hand
who will take care of it.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit risky.
This is a question of first aid and easy tricks before taking it somewhere else.
I think so. Yeah.
And I know, I use a traveling dry cleaner called Michael Norman, who's very good. But I mean, sometimes there's a lack of good dry cleaners around, isn't there? So
well, that's the danger, because essentially a dry cleaner is going to take care of a stain by injecting sort of chemicals into it. And that's taking away those natural oils, so especially in a wool, and that's when you start getting those shines that we've all kind of encountered. After you've taken something to a dry cleaner, they can sort of start sucking the life out. They'll get the stain out, but they'll also start drawing some of those lovely natural oils. So you want to find a dry cleaner who really knows what they're doing, who's going to attack the situation without sort of taking all those natural oils out.
So maybe based on a recommendation from a friend or a tailor or somebody else who knows.
Yeah, and online, there's like you say, there's a lot of collect and drop off services, and you should get a good idea of a good one. Yeah,
I think it's an interesting point made about chemicals. That's always the danger point for me, when I feel if you're sort of buying actual chemicals to use on a piece of clothing, then actually when I feel I'm completely out of my comfort area. I'm not using something natural, I'm not just soaking it up, I'm applying a chemical to a clothing which I don't understand the reaction between the two of them. So.
Well, exactly, it can be scary, and with very mixed results.
Yeah, and you're dealing with like a £4,000 or £5,000 suit, for example, that you could then just damage irreparably. Okay. Great. Okay. Well, some good tips we can do there, but a general kind of sense of caution of doing too much yourself.
Absolutely. That's it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Thanks, Ben.
Pleasure.